Welcome, everybody. It's Tuesday, June 6th. This is the Aravosis Report with John Aravosis. Here to talk to you about the latest in Ukraine. Obviously, today's big story, and really our entire show, is going to be about the Kakhovka Dam blowing up or disintegrating or whatever happened today in Ukraine. We're going to talk about the various possibilities. Before I get to that, let me get TikTok rolling here. And hang on. Oops. Let me changing the title of my TikTok. It still has yesterday's title on it. Ukraine dam disaster. It's saying an atom disaster. I guess that works too. Any case, introduce yourselves. You guys know how this works. It takes about 2 minutes for folks to arrive pretty much after they get notified on social media. So usually we wait for those first 2 minutes. Ukraine dam disaster. Now you're not getting the map until until the show's until we officially start. Here we go. Go live. There we go. Up. Boom. There we go. Kay's got a super chat question, which of course, remember, I always get to super chat questions. That's part of the deal. If you guys pay for a question, then no matter what, I get to it. Yes, Susan was asking for the map, and Susan does get special leeway because she's ridiculously generous. Here come the TikTokers. Let me see what Kay was writing really quick. Welcome, TikTokers. We're just going to wait a minute or two for folks to arrive. There's a story on News Nation, 6 p.m. today, about a whistleblower coming forward about UFOs. Yeah, I know about that. I read the story. Yep. No, I know. I read the story the other day. Welcome, TikTokers. As we're usual, we're waiting about a minute and a half or so for folks to arrive before we get going officially. Kay was just asking with the super chat question about the UFO story. There's a story out there about a whistleblower who claims he was working with sort of the Pentagon. Thank you, Mads, for the hat, for the heart, I should say. He was working with the Pentagon office investigating UFOs. Thank you, Slava. Appreciate that. And John. But I read it. I mean, as we say, I want to believe. Thank you, Tom, for the confetti. I just wasn't. I mean, maybe. I kind of read the story and was like, maybe. And trust me, I'm somebody who wants to believe. Thank you, Happy Beach and Slava. But I guess because there's nothing there yet. It's all classified and they gave it to Congress or whatever. So, who knows? Thank you, Slava, for the music. I guess Obama, we're talking about UFOs really quick while we're waiting for the show to start here. I always wait a couple of minutes for folks to arrive from social media. So somebody was asking about the UFO report. Obama, when he first came into office, thank you, Slava, for those, said that he had asked for all the information that they had. Thank you, Nicholas. And that, basically they didn't have any, but who knows? He said there were no little spaceships or anything else they had, but who knows? Like I said, I want to believe, so we'll see. All right, guys, I'm going to get rolling. So thank you, Fuzzy, for the gift. This is John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report, my nightly show, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., Monday to Friday, where we talk about the latest news from the war in Ukraine. Today's big story is going to be that dam breaking in Ukraine. Thank you, Morley. Whether did the Russians do it? Was it an accident? Could Ukraine have even done it? I'm going to walk you through all of that, and then what the implications are for this. What does this mean for the counteroffensive going forward? Let me think here. For anybody who's new, thank you, Kanowski, for the gift. The way the show works is typically I do the news first and then you guys ask questions. Thank you, TikTok novice. The entire show today is going to be about this dam. I mean, I've got crazy amount. Frankly, I've got too much information to talk to you guys about the dam. So I will certainly be grabbing questions kind of as we go through. As always, the super chat questions on TikTok get super chat questions on YouTube get priority because people pay for those. It's my way of saying thank you. But I also will, of course, do shout outs for any of the gifts I see on TikTok. That's the big ones that fly across the screen. And if I don't, beat me up, mods, and let me know that I missed somebody. Other than that, just that. Please keep the gifts coming. As I said, I always say I do this for free. I've been doing it full time since the war broke out. This is my income. This is my job. And nobody pays me, and I'm not independently wealthy. I get paid through your guys' gifts on TikTok, through your guys' super chat and super questions. Super stickers. Thank you, Michael, for the llama. I like that llama. I don't know why. I think it's kind of cute the way he pops up. Thank you, Stephen, for the hat. So please do keep the gifts coming. Thank you, TikTok novice. So let's get rolling, guys. So it is day 467 of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation. I'm no longer giving him credit for the 10 days. Big story today is the dam bursting. This, of course, will require the map. Although the map, well, we talk about some different things today with the map. Thank you for the heart there, J-Rod. Appreciate that. So, okay, you got Ukraine. You've got the area that Russia controls, okay? All of this. Got to tighten up this map. The map needs a facelift, basically. All of this is what Russia controls, okay? Now, going into this, let me kind of remind you guys of what the story is with, that's right, Mario. Thank you, Mario. I did see that, Mario. I forgot a second when I was talking about K. I did see that pop up. So you get the map, you get a freebie for the map anyway, Mario. Thank you. It is important when talking about this dam breaking to consider the map, okay? So Russia controls more or less all of this, okay? Oops, I am going to have to give this thing a little facelift. I'll have to remember to do that before the show tomorrow. Crimea, south of the river. This is the river that flooded, south of the river here, all the way to here, and then kind of across and up. The expectation for the counteroffensive, for Ukraine's big, striking back, thank you, Greg, is that Ukraine really would be focusing a lot on Zaporizhia province here, but also Kherson. That basically, whoa, that giraffe was very cool, tattooed. I haven't seen that one before. Thank you for that. That was a nice one. Thank you. That Ukraine with the counteroffensive would be focusing a lot on Zaporizhia, but also Kherson. That basically needs to pull off getting these two provinces in order to cut the Russian occupation in half. Remember, we said Russia's occupation is all of this. So if Ukraine gets back these two provinces, it cuts Crimea off from the rest of it. That makes it much more amenable to attacking Crimea and then getting it back as well. Well, what happened here, more giraffes here. Was that tattooed again or somebody else? Hang on, let me see. Oh, that was Allie. Thank you, Allie, for the giraffe. Appreciate that. So what happened today? There is a dam on this river, okay? It is more or less where the river bends, around here where my finger is on the river, right? Ukrainians control north of the river. Russians control south of the river. This dam breaks last night around 2:50 a.m. in the morning, Ukraine time, okay? Causes massive flooding north of the river and south of the river in this area here, but then lowers the water everywhere else, right? Because this water was built up because of the dam. The dam builds the water up before the dam, and of course, doesn't stops the water from going below the dam, or at least cuts it back. So what happens here? The dam blows up, a lot of flooding. Now, and again, as I said, this just happens to be one of the key areas that Ukraine needs to take back in order to split this, but also put Crimea in a really perilous position, because then it's cut off from the rest. That area is now flooded, which makes it very difficult for Ukraine to take it back. So let's go in and just talk. Let me see here. Sorry, I did have a question I saw, or a comment. Steven said, Ukraine should put loudspeakers in every trench and constantly blare war drums and scare Russia's front line. They may. The U.S. did that. Remember, the U.S. did that with what's his face, Noriega in Panama. We were blaring like hard rock music at him. Thank you, Loop, for the duck. And sorry, there was a gift I saw flying on screen right before this. It's DMR. I think it's DMR or DMR with the heart, and Michael with the llama. Michael, it was your llama. Now I'm not even sure which one I missed. Thank you, Loop. Thank you, James. Thank you, Piches. All right, let's kind of jump in with this. So the issue here is there was a hole burst in the dam. Okay. The hole was on the Russian side because the Russians control the south, the Ukrainians control the north, and the dam obviously is going across the river, right? From south to north, north to south. The hole was on kind of in the middle, but on the Russian side. Okay, that's interesting, right? It was massive flooding as a result. The National Police of Ukraine said that at least 23 towns and villages have been flooded. The water level in the river has risen by nearly 11 feet. At least 16,000 people have lost their homes already. I'm sure that number was higher because this was a couple hours ago. And kind of a creepy thing, if you noticed on some of the media, some of the videos they're showing, you're seeing these sort of explosions out of the water. The dams are, I should say the water, because of big flood waters, right? The waters are picking up and moving landmines that the Russians put all over the place. Thank you, Carol. And not just moving the landmines closer to civilians, basically, right? But they're also, hang on a second here, just getting rid of crazy people. Yep, there we go. Goodbye, crazy person. Sorry, I'm trying to delete something and I've got too many. There we go. Too many coming through at once. Not only is it picking up the landmines and moving them towards civilians, it's also blowing them up. In other words, the weight of the water on top of the mine with the flowing water is blowing up these landmines. So really dangerous there as far as what's going on. Imagine, because you've got the water flowing into civilian areas with landmines in it. I mean, just to add to the creepiness, okay? I'm going to go through sort of a back and forth of the possibilities here. Who could have done it? Why? Who does it benefit? But I figured, rather than sort of stringing you guys along for a while, I will tell you first what I think, and then what I want to start with sort of the New York Times, which is sort of backs it up. I feel that Russia did this. The only reason, thank you, P.S. Pam Pam, the only reason I hedge a little is, I don't have proof. Okay. And one of the things sort of I try to do with stuff I do is not tell you guys definitively, oh, Russia did this. Because if I tell you broadcasting, oh, Russia did this, and I don't sort of qualify it, you're going to think, oh, he read something or somebody told him or whatever, right? I don't just want you to think, in other words, I don't want to sort of lead you along. I think Russia did this. I'm pretty confident. I'm very confident Russia did this, but I don't know. And you will see some of the experts on TV telling you the same thing. We just don't know, but and then we're going to talk about why it really looks like Russia did this, okay? New York Times had a really good story that I just saw literally right before coming on the show. I'm going to read you the first paragraph and then a little bit further on. A deliberate explosion inside the Kakhovka Dam on the front line of the war in Ukraine most likely caused its collapse on Tuesday, according to engineering and munitions experts, who said that structural failure or an attack from outside the dam were possible, but less plausible explanations. The New York Times is saying that the experts it talked to said it is most likely that this was an explosion from inside the dam, and basically somebody planted an explosive charge. Somebody planted a bomb inside the dam. They do not think it was the dam wearing down. Now, one of the things that actually, they are going to tell you here. One of the things that came up was, could the dam have just collapsed on its own? There were some satellite videos in the last couple of weeks showing that the road on top of the dam in the middle was starting to have some problems, some damage, right? And maybe the dam was like slowly coming apart or something. We do know, by the way, too, that the Russians were really screwing around. For example, they let the water level north of the dam by the nuclear plant, which we're going to talk about that in a bit too. There's a nuclear plant right up here, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant in Enerhodar, that's right up here, that the Ukrainian plant that the Russians are occupying and controlling. And the Russians have been screwing around with the water levels of the plant, letting the water levels get really dangerously low and then really dangerously high. You need water at the plant to help keep the plant cool. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. In terms of, look, so listen to this. When dams collapse, this is the New York Times again. When dams collapse because of unusually heavy water flows, the failure normally would start on the earthen part of the dam on either bank, the expert said. But photos and videos show that the Kakhovka Dam was first breached in the middle, next to the power plant adjoining the Russian-held bank. Both ends of the dam, where you would expect it to the damage to be if it were just some natural disaster kind of thing. Both ends of the dam appeared to be intact at first, though as the day went on, more and more of it collapsed. So what the Times is saying, their experts looked at it and said, if it was something natural, if it was natural, when I say natural, I mean not, no man did it himself, okay? If a man didn't do it and it was literally the dam started breaking away because the water was too strong, pushing against it, whatever, you wouldn't see it break where it broke, which is right in the middle. When you see it break where it broke in the middle, that's because there was an explosive force inside the dam. Now, one of the things the Times was saying as well, reading more into it, I should say reading further down in the article, was the reason they think it was inside is, and this was something I think I saw on Sky News earlier today, dams are really strong. I mean, it is tons of feet of reinforced concrete. They were saying, for example, you could shoot an artillery shell against a dam and it would bounce off of it. The guy on Sky News was saying there might be a mark, like literally you might have a mark on the dam, but shooting an artillery shell at a dam wouldn't do a damn thing, right? So basically you would need massive firepower in order to take out a dam like this thing happened. But if you were to release a bomb inside the dam, inside an enclosed room inside the dam, all of a sudden you're getting a much more powerful explosion, right? I mean, you know how this works, how explosions inside a small space cause a lot more damage, right? So this bomb going off in a small room inside the dam would put all the force of the bomb against the dam itself. Anyway, could cause the damage. Much more here. Let me see. Deep, deep, deep. Hang on. Okay. Okay, I was going to talk a little bit. I'm looking at my notes. I've got so much here, but my notes here. Thank you, Stephen, for that, for the cap. In terms of who the dam helps and who the dam hurts, okay, the dam being blown up or disintegrating or whatever. The flooding certainly hurts the counteroffensive. Okay, so first off, I was talking to you guys at the beginning of the show about. Oh, thank you, Marcy, for the llama. We were talking at the beginning of the show about the counteroffensive, Ukraine's big counterattack. Now, some of us, I happen to think this, some of us think that Ukraine started the counteroffensive yesterday, but it was kind of a slow start. Basically, the last few weeks, Ukraine's been blowing things up here and there, Russian ammunition, troops, command and control headquarters, going after a lot of oil facilities, right? Trying to basically go after the fuel that the Russians are going to use. And then Ukraine, when it was ready, would start to actually do some actual attacks against Russian troops and things like this. Now, these attacks would be for a variety of reasons. One of them would be basically a fake, that the Russians are trying to figure out where are the 1, 2, 3 spots the Ukrainians are going to put all of their troops and really go for. The Ukrainians don't want them to know. So part of the way they fake them out is by doing an attack here, doing an attack here, doing one over here, right? Thank you, JR, for that. And the idea is to kind of just screw with the Russians, right? So the Russians don't know if these are just little pinprick attacks or if the Ukrainians, this is a precursor to a big attack in that area. So the Russians aren't sure where to put their troops, okay? Second reason the Ukrainians do it is to test the Russian defenses, to see, hey, how well are the Russians holding up when we attack? By learning that will tell us in general, it just gives the Ukrainians a good idea for how well the Russians can defend themselves. That helps them plan militarily. But also, if the Ukrainians attack in one area and they get strong resistance, another area, strong resistance. Thank you, Tom. They go to a third area and the Russians kind of cave, right? Like they did in eastern Ukraine last year in Kharkiv and that area. If the Russians kind of start caving and falling apart, the Ukrainians might say, hey, this is interesting. Let's attack more in this area, right? Anyways, that's how the counteroffensive works. Offensive works. But one thought was, I'm sorry. So the reason I was telling you that is the Russians are also playing a game where they've got to figure out, okay, where do we think the Ukrainians are going to attack? Okay. And the Russians generally, they worry the Ukrainians are going to attack up here. They worry the Ukrainians are going to attack here, and they worry here, right? So kind of eastern Ukraine, Zaporizhia, which is this province here, and then Kherson here, right? Those are sort of the three main areas that they're worried about. Well, how does this affect Ukraine? Well, if this whole area gets flooded, it makes it very difficult for Ukraine, at least for the time being, to take this area. One of the goals, I just told you, the three main attacks, one of the attacks would be this area. Now, the idea here is to take Kherson. Remember, south of the river is what the Russians control. This area the Ukrainians want for a variety of reasons, but mostly because it's right north of Crimea. If the Russians control all of this. If the Ukrainians can take this, literally you can see with my fingers, I've cut off that region in the south from the region in the north. So the Russians no longer have a land bridge connecting to this occupied region here that the Russians are controlling. So the Ukrainians definitely want Kherson. Well, the way they get Kherson is coming across the river. The river is now a hell of a lot bigger than it was before. Thank you, Susanna. The river is now a hell of a lot bigger than it was before. So the Ukrainian plans to cross the river, in principle, are going to be a lot harder, right? That basically the Ukrainians, now mind you, my guess is the Ukrainians were also kind of thinking ahead and thinking, hey, how do we block this? How do we prepare for what the Russians are going to do? Because we know the Russians are going to do this anyway, right? So how do we actually prepare for what the Russians are going to do? And one of the ways you do that, thank you for the heart there. Who was that? Thank you, Brock. One of the ways you do that is thinking of counter scenarios, because I guarantee you that Zelensky and his advisors sat there and thought about it and thought, okay, but what do we do if Russia blows up the dam, right? So they've got a not proposal, but a counter strategy that they're ready to do. But it's still, the experts think, make it a bigger pain in the ass for the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians probably did want to cross the river and come down. With the river being so big, it makes it more difficult to cross, but also, and any of you who have been watching the show for a while, we talk a lot about the weather and winter and spring and the wet ground and everything else. This ground is now all really wet. The analysis I saw earlier today was that the experts are saying the water should peak like in the next 24 hours, which is good, but it's going to take 10 days for the water to dissipate, because basically the water comes down, right? Actually, let me stop a second here. You've got the dam, okay? There's a big chunk out of the dam. There is some disagreement as to how much damage the dam has suffered. Some people that I've seen today have said the dam is a loss. It's just destroyed. They're going to have to rebuild it like from scratch. Even Zelensky, I think, earlier had said something about starting the dam from scratch. I did see, Yulia has been talking to some structural engineers today, and I think it was yours, Yulia. No, I'm already forgetting because I was watching Yulia's video and a number of other videos today. But some of the folks were saying that the damage isn't that great, that it's the kind of thing that can be fixed. And one of the things I saw actually elsewhere as well said that, I think this was Cedric Layton on CNN, the colonel on CNN, who's very good. He was saying, is this basically damage like this, or is it damage like this? Well, if it's damage like this, the water level will drop to here, and that's it. It's not going to go any further. If the dam is broken way further, the water level goes down much further. The other issue, of course, is what happens to the rest of the dam, right? Like, will this keep crumbling as the days go on? My point in bringing that is all of that will affect how long this crisis goes on, right? Will the water stop? Will the extra water stop flowing, or will there be a lot of extra water that's going to come in a week if the dam cracks more? Let's pretend like the dam is where it is right now, that we're not going to have any more surprises. There isn't more of it's going to crumble and even more water is going to come. The experts think in about 10 days, this should all dry up. Excuse me, I shouldn't say dry up. In 10 days, the extra water will be gone. But then we have to reassess, the Ukrainians will have to reassess, what's the situation on the ground? Is this all a swamp now, right? Like, the water could be gone, but the ground could be sopping wet for a very, a good amount of depth there. Thank you, Jedamam, for the gift. If the ground is sopping wet, that changes the calculus for the Ukrainian troops, because one of the issues we've always talked about was part of the delay in the counteroffensive. Part of it's been waiting for weapons. I mean, this is just us guessing, right? But I think it's a smart guess. Part of it's been waiting for more weapons to come from the West, for example. Thank you, Maddie, for the gift. Open. Who was that? Who else was that? Martin, Maddie and Martin. So part of it's waiting for more weapons to arrive. The longer you delay, the more weapons that arrive. Part of it is Bento. Oh, thank you, Ben. Oh, Benito. Thank you, Benito. I didn't say, you're right. I did not see that, Roshan. Thank you very much for that. That was very sweet of you. I appreciate that. Oh, and a hat popped up just as I was thanking you as well. Oh, from Fred. Thank you, Fred. Yes, spring to summer, or I should say winter to spring. The second half of the delay, thank you, Brock, is when the snow thaws in the winter and the ice thaws in the winter, the ground is really wet. And when the ground is wet, it's too moist, it's too damp, it's too muddy, and tanks and things can't really ride over it very well. So the tanks end up having to be on the main roads. And when you have tanks on a main road, or a lot of trucks and vehicles on a main road, they get blown up very easily. Look what the Ukrainians did. Remember at the beginning of the war, the 40-mile convoy that the Ukrainians blew up, that was, I'm forgetting now, coming down to Kyiv. I think it might have been up here. I forget now if it was up here or up here, but this 40-mile long convoy that the Ukrainians blew up from the Russians, that's what happens when you've got your trucks on a road. So the Ukrainians were hoping that around now, the ground had dried enough that they could attack and go all over the place, off terrain, like off the road, stuff like that. This is now going to make it so that they can't really go off the road in that area. That's going to slow them down. They won't know for 10 days, or at 10 days, they'll get a better sense of what the road looks like, what the ground looks like, I should say. Thank you, Ava, and what they can do next. So that's one big disadvantage for the Ukrainians. Second big problem for the Ukrainians, if the Russians did this, then the Russians knew what was going to happen, right? The Russians knew, and by the way, interesting timing. Yesterday was the day that all of us were saying it looks like maybe the Ukrainian counteroffensive began. right? The Russians were saying it began. Some Ukrainian experts were saying it began. I said I thought it began. A lot of us thought it began yesterday. It just so happens that the evening of the day that the Ukrainian counteroffensive appears to begin, that's when the dam broke. That's when the dam broke, screwing up the Ukrainian plans, at least in that province, at least for right now. A little suspicious. Thank you, Morley, for the robe there. Right, a little suspicious. What's the other thing? Oh, yeah, the other advantage for Russia in this. So not only does it at least slow down Ukraine's plans to invade that region, but if Russia knew it was going to blow the dam last night, then Russia did not have to put that many troops in this region, right? Why put a ton of troops in this region if you know this region's going to be flooded? You would instead put your troops over here, because now you know, at least for the next few weeks, the Ukrainians probably can't invade here. They're going to have to invade over here. So if you're Russia, you put more troops here. So for Russia, this is actually a good thing, because Russia now can put even more, or already probably has put a lot of troops that would have been here just in case are now over here. So they've doubled up the number of troops they've got here. There is some talk that I've been seeing reports on TV that some Russian troops were caught in the flooding. Hang on. Actually, that's a good. That's funny. Leanne is saying, how many Russians did the flood affect and where? There you go. That I was just going to say, I don't know how many Russians it affected. First of all, difficult for us to know necessarily how many Russians were affected, right? I mean, I guarantee you, the U.S. is looking at satellite imagery. Thank you, Chief. And trying to figure out not just the flooding, but they're comparing images before the flooding and image after the flooding to say, okay, where were the troops? How many Russians do we think were in that area? Because they know. And then looking at the water and trying to figure out, right, damage, were any soldiers killed? Some of the reports today were claiming some of the Russians were killed. They were claiming a lot of the Russian weapons were damaged. Now, first of all, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not true is the first thing. Second of all, just because let's pretend not only were some Russian troops flooded, let's pretend some Russian troops were killed, okay, in this flooding. Does that mean, and some people were saying, well, if Russian troops were damaged or killed and their weapons were destroyed, that means Russia couldn't have done this. I take you back to 1999. It is widely believed that Vladimir Putin in 1999 thank you for the heart there, that Vladimir Putin in 1999 blew up a series of apartment buildings in Moscow and across Russia in order to, long story, but in order to basically create a panic, terrorist panic. Imagine in your country, apartment buildings getting blown up, like big apartment buildings, right? With hundreds of people dying, getting blown up all over the country, I think there were like 5 bombings or something. And Putin at the time, I think, was prime minister. The hero was in charge of the response, and it led to elections that made him president. And then Putin stayed supreme leader of Russia from that time now for 24 years, whatever it's been, 23 years now. Putin is exactly the kind of guy who would kill his own troops if it served his purposes. I mean, actually, look at the war. Actually, I mean, it's funny even saying this. Look at the war itself. Putin is killing his own troops for no reason, right? Putin is sending Bakhmut, that town in eastern Ukraine, over here. For 11 months, the Russians have been trying to take this town. There's no strategic reason why the Russians should be taking this town. They had 100,000 casualties. That's deaths and injuries. The conservative estimate is that the Russians lost 100,000 men trying to take this little town of 60,000 people that does not matter strategically. Of course, it matters to the Ukrainians. They care about their towns. But in terms of the Russians, there's no reason they should have taken this town. They did. And they lost 100,000 men injured and killed. The number of killed is probably 20 or 30,000 easy just for this stupid town. Putin is more than happy to have his men die in a war that, right? There's, what I mean. I don't need to sell this to you guys. So you've got the 1999 attack on the apartments, but you've also got just Putin's behavior overall in this war. Vladimir Putin wouldn't kill some of his own troops if he thought in the back of his head that in the end it gave him an advantage. If he thought he could screw up the Ukrainian counteroffensive by killing a couple thousand of his own troops, Putin would be like, sure, right? So that's a bogus argument to me. Does it help Ukraine? It's hard to find a reason to say that this helps Ukraine. Let me sort of see here. Actually, let me first say a little bit of how because it's, for example, I'm actually trying to think of this here. Thank you for the, who was that with the little gifts there? I was trying to like write down even, user 3334 for the hands. I was trying to sort of write down like how this could benefit Ukraine. And I mean, okay, maybe you wash out some of the Russian troops. Maybe you destroy some of their weapons. That's good. But you do make it extremely difficult for Ukraine to move its own troops in, right? Because of everything's flooded now. Thank you. Who was that crazy American? You leave some uncertainty because a flood, there's no way for Ukraine to know what the result of the flood is going to be, right? Are they going to be able to invade after the flood? Who the hell knows, right? So there's a variable there that would give Ukraine pause if they were thinking of doing this themselves. No one could tell them for a fact, oh yeah, if we flood this area, this is what'll happen, and in 10 days we'll be able to continue. Who knows, right? There's also the fact that they're killing a lot of their own people. Putin would do that. Would Zelensky? I don't really think Zelensky would as readily kill his own people as Putin would, his own, not just their own troops, but their own citizens. It cuts off the water to their, actually, real big environmental disaster overall in the region, killing animals, the poor zoo animals. It was saying several hundred animals at the zoo were dead. Basically, I mean, kind of gross. These poor animals were in cages when it flooded. Imagine, I mean, just basically drowning. Really horrible story. So these animals were killed at the zoo. You also had the dam, the water reservoir was used to provide a lot of water in the area, including to a lot of important farmland. So this farmland is now not going to have water for a long time unless this thing can be fixed anytime soon. And Crimea is once again not going to have water. Remember, Crimea in the south gets its water, a pipeline or whatever that goes up here. Now, the Ukrainians had cut this off when the Russians stole this area. The Ukrainians cut off the water to it because they're like, we're not going to give water to help you cement your invasion of our own land. So that at least suggests that Crimea can survive. It's not like Crimea is going to die, because Crimea didn't die when the Ukrainians cut off the water for several years. But it's something that, again, Ukraine may not want to have happen. It's not beneficial. Let me do another quick. There was a... Was there? Oh, here we go. Yeah, Sarah, would the flooding mean the Russians have to back up? Yes, that's one of the thoughts too, is that the Russians in the area who were able to back up, or frankly, who knew it was, if Russia knew it was coming, if Russia did this on purpose, some of the troops they would have positioned in the area so they could deny it. Well, we had troops in the area. We didn't blow up the dam. Why would we blow up our own? Why would we flood our own troops? Right. But some of the troops they would have put further down. Some of the troops might have been able to move further down if they saw the floodwaters coming. Well, if the Russians move further down, instead of the Russians being up to here, they're now up to here. Well, that makes it a little harder for them to bomb the Ukrainian troops because they were using artillery and stuff. And basically they had artillery set up here so that if the Ukrainians tried to cross the river, they would simply try to blow up the Ukrainians. Well, now, if the Ukrainians try to cross the river up here, the Russians are now down here. They're further away. So it might make it a little harder for the Russians, but actually, I mean, yes and no. At some point, the artillery, for example, has moved further south, but the river has moved further south. So the Ukrainians, like going by boat or whatever they used across the river, are still going to have to get to the point where the artillery is, and they could still be blown up. So I don't know. I don't know that it's going to necessarily hurt the Russians. Thank you, Sam I Am, for the gift. Sorry, and can now see. I mean, there's a lot more info, but I'm looking at just to sort of sum up this section. If I had anything else on this, hang on a second. Oh, another disadvantage for Ukraine, why I think this isn't a good thing for Ukraine. This is forcing Ukraine to have to spend a lot of time figuring this out, right? It reminds me of what happened with, I see the two gifts there. I'll get to them in a second. It reminds me of what happened with Ukrainians attacking Moscow. We think Ukrainians attacking Moscow with the drones, right? They're doing it in order just to screw with the Russians. So the Russians have a crisis in the Kremlin, right? These drones are attacking Moscow, and I'm having to worry about Moscow and have meetings and figure out military people and move troops and whatever. Also, same thing with these Russian troops that were attacking Russia up here, still are, and we think the Ukrainians are behind that too. Well, with these troops here, the Russians have to move troops. They've got to move weapons. They're having strategy meetings, right? They're having all sorts of crisis planning about these troops here, and about the drones attacking Moscow. And those are meetings that aren't being focused on the counteroffensive. Same thing here. Zelensky now has to worry about an ecological disaster and humanitarian disaster in addition to a military problem down here. He's got, thousands of people, 16,000 people right now that have no homes, right? Which means they need food, they need water, they need shelter. He's got a disaster. It's disaster planning. It's our country when a hurricane hits or a tornado hits, right? The federal government and the local government has to focus on that. Well, this is a way of distracting Zelensky from the counteroffensive. He's now got to worry about this too. Anyway, sorry, Ben had, thank you, Ben, for that. Sky News reported that Russia signed, yes, I didn't get to that. I was going to mention it, Ben, but I'll mention it now since Ben brought it up in a super chat. Sky News reported that Russia signed a decree banning the inspection of hydroelectric structures a week before the dam blew up. Very convenient. That is exactly what happened. Yes, real quick here. Lee Atwater, thank you for the slime, The slime always cracks me up. Sorry, I'm looking back here. TikTok has got to do something. I'm going to look here at the top. I don't think TikTok does anything where they let me now. No, I was just looking to see. They ought to give me a little thing. Nope, that lets me see the gifts. It's so stupid of them. It would be so smart of them to do that. You know what I mean? Just to have a little thing that I can click on the screen and see all the gifters. So I could say, in any case, thank you all. I know I've been missing some of you over there. I apologize for that. Oh, cool giraffe. Sorry, sip of water. Very cool giraffe on TikTok. Oop, who was that? As TikTok's hiding who you are. Oh, there we are. Oh, Callum. Thank you, Callum. Appreciate that. Yes. So Russia signed some decree about a week ago, Putin, that bans inspectors from inspecting in Ukraine, the regions in Ukraine that they're occupying, including Zaporizhia, this region, from inspecting damage and structural problems at the dam. Now, actually, hold on a second. I've got the story further on here. One sec here. No, I'm not going to find it. Anyway, it's somewhere in my notes. But yes, that was more suspicious stuff. And Carlos Bond. Carlos is just being generous, like Carlos is. Thank you for that, Carlos. Let me Oops, 1 second here. So I'm going through the questions. Boop. Oops. Hang on here. So many things coming up. So many things. Wait. Sorry, 1 quick second, guys. There we go. Did you miss a drink? You might have. Yeah, that was it. I mean, I've got more news to tell you about the dam, about the dam bursting, but that was sort of it for the analysis. That generally speaking, it seems to hurt the Russians a lot less than it hurts the Ukrainians. Thank you, Louis. You can find really good reasons for why Russia would do this, because it basically screws up the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the region. This is a key counteroffensive for getting Crimea. You can't find a lot of reasons for why Ukraine would do this. It just doesn't. If Ukraine were going to do this, they'd have to have another reason. Like, for example, okay, in the north, Ukraine did do something like this in the north, but totally different, right? Kyiv, the battle for Kyiv. Remember the beginning of the war? The Russians invade and the Russians control a lot of this at the beginning of the war, okay? At one point, the Ukrainians burst a dam or whatever up here, and it flooded a bunch of the area. Well, by flooding the area, it literally drowned these Russian troops. I mean, it drowned the Russian troops. It flooded the tanks. I mean, it destroyed the Russians that were camped in this area. But it made sense. Ukraine wanted to wipe out the Russians in this area in order to try to push them back entirely. That made sense. And the flood wasn't something that was going to kill a lot of Ukrainians. It wasn't going to cause long-term damage. Like, the concern here, of course, is there's long-term damage in terms of, will Ukrainian farmers be able to even get water? That's not the kind of thing that was going on in the north. So in the north, there was a good reason why Ukraine would do it. There isn't really a good reason why Ukraine would do it in the south. That's the problem. Okay. Let me tell you really quick. God, 40 minutes. Wow. I was feeling like I was on a roll here. I told you there's a ton of news about this stuff today. We're going to keep talking about the dam. Don't worry. I wanted to tell you really quick. One of the ways you can support my work is through a site called Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com. It's kind of like whatchamacallit, Patreon. We're trying. I still have a Patreon account, but we're trying not to use them anymore because they've gone evil. Thank you, Kanausi. They don't like, they basically don't like people who are supporting the war in Ukraine, who are supporting the Ukrainians. And they've gone after a lot of us and threatened our accounts and everything else. They did it to me a few weeks ago. So, I did what they made me disconnect my account from other accounts and things. Thank you, Carol, for the corgi. So I did what they asked. Thank you, Kanausi. But I'm not pushing them anymore because it's too risky. If they're going to be, clearly there's something going on with Patriot. There's somebody high up there that is, it could be like this Elon Musk problem, this David Sachs problem, where you've got like these senior people with companies who are basically pro Putin for some crazy reason. That's going on, or something else. But anyway, bottom line is, I'm pushing Ko-fi.com now. You can find the Ko-fi link at the bottom of the page for you guys on the screen there, ko-fi.com/Aravosis. But it's a really easy way to contribute to my work, to support me. You can give a one-time donation. You could give an ongoing, if you can afford it, and you like my work and you've been watching for a while, you could give an ongoing donation, once a month, contribute $7.99 or $24.99. But it's a nice, easy way of just giving a donation and having it either one time or repeat each week. And finally, and I'll go on with the rest of the news. One of the neat things with Ko-fi is you can also use it if you want to join my Discord community. You can become a VIP member of my Discord community. So if you're already at my Discord or you want to join it, it's just a nice way of upping your membership that basically just supports me, but it also gives you access to some of the VIP stuff. On the weekends, I do a private show for the donors where we all get together and Vlad from Ukraine joins us. So I got sort of a chat with a real Ukrainian, but Vlad's great. He's one of our partners in all of this. But some other benefits like our auctions and some other things, that a special auction just for the private donors. So there's a lot of ways that it helps. But bottom line is, it's a way of supporting my work. I would appreciate, I try to get one or two people a show to help out. And thank you, Nico, for the heart, to try to help out by joining on Ko-fi if you can. So you can find the link in TikTok in my profile. Just go to the Linktree link in TikTok profile, click it, and Ko-fi will come up as the top thing. You guys have it at the bottom of the screen, ko-fi.com/Aravosis. Okay, let me see here. I'm going to see, because a lot of this I already sort of covered in what we're talking. We talked about Ukraine, what they got out of it. We talked about Russia, what they get out of it. NBC News, just give you a few more little reports and then we'll do questions. NBC News reports that U.S. intelligence, that the U.S. has intelligence that is leaning towards Russia as the culprit. Now, again, they're hedging, but that's the way the intelligence community does things. I should have said, for TikTok, I set it up. I hope it's working, but I set it up so that TikTok paid subscribers on TikTok will also be VIP members in the Discord now as a thank you to you guys. Even though you got the show anyway, you didn't have access to the auctions. It should work. If it's not, let me know. But excuse me. But if you have a TikTok somebody just did it. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. I saw my phone go off when we were talking. Jack just signed up or at least gave a contribution. And if you've got a Discord, you've got the instructions on the page that tells you sort of what to do for linking it to Discord. Thank you for that. All right, let me keep going here. So NBC, the NBC News is reporting that U.S. intelligence, the U.S. has intelligence that suggests that Russia might be responsible. Now, they're being very careful about this. They're not saying that Russia is to blame. They literally use the word that is leaning towards Russia as the culprit. Thank you, Jeff. That to me means we don't know for a fact. We've got something that certainly is suspicious, that certainly makes it look like it could be Russia, but that it isn't definitive enough for some reason. It's not definitive enough for us to say, yes, conclusively it was Russia. And the White House actually got asked about that in the last hour. And I think they actually said, we can't conclusively say yet what caused the dam to fail. And I think that's smart. I think that's the safe way to do it, even though, let's face it, thank you, Paige, for the heart. A lot of us think it was Russia, but I think, in order to be smart about this, just that. I think in order to be smart, I like the approach the White House is taking. We'll put it that way. Michael Clark on Sky News, another expert. He's very good, a military expert on Sky News who's there all the time. He said, Ukraine has nothing to gain from this. Russia has something to gain. In my own mind, I am absolutely certain it was the Russians. He says the damage is on the Russian side of the dam. He says it looks like an explosion at the top, but the reservoir, and he's the one who said the reservoir may not be completely empty, which means it may be less of a tragedy than we fear. And then I got the government decree that you brought up. Let me jump to the last part. The last part I was going to talk about was the nuclear plant. Okay. Yeah. The nuclear plant. So concerned about the nuclear plant is the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant up here, more or less the top, you see how the river kind of comes and then goes down. It's at the top where it comes most north right here, south side of the river, because that's what the Russians control. There's the nuclear plant, biggest nuclear plant in Europe. 6 reactors, 5 of the reactors have been shut down. One of them is still working to a degree to provide some local electricity. The concern is if the water levels go down so much, right? You've got the nuclear plant. You've got a dam downriver. Well, the dam downriver means water is going to get higher and higher before the dam. So the plant is going to have water at a certain level, and that water the plant is using to cool the plant. Because nuclear plants, again, I always say I'm not a nuclear expert, but I know enough about this. You've got the fuel rods that have the radioactive material in them, and they dunk them in water. Basically, they're in running water. They heat the water gives off steam, and the steam is used to create electricity, right? The steam is, or I should say, the water is also used to keep the rods cool. If the rods aren't in any water, they're going to overheat. They could explode. They can melt down, right? What happened in Fukushima in Japan with the tsunami? The coolant system went out because of the tsunami, knocked it out, the electricity in the coolant system, and the plant overheated. You had a meltdown. So that's why the water matters. Now, let me pull this up exactly. So Financial Times had a story on this. A number of experts are saying the same thing, but Financial Times did a really good job on this. They said experts are saying it is highly unlikely that a nuclear accident could occur. 5 of Zaporizhzhia's 6 reactors were placed in cold shutdown last year, while its 6th reactor is in warm shutdown, meaning neither requires large supplies of fresh water to keep their temperature under control. Temperatures in the cold shutdown reactors, the 5 reactors, will be less than 100 degrees Celsius. That's a boiling point of water. All they need to do is to keep circulating the water they already have inside them. Okay, that's good. So in other words, they don't need more water. They just need the electricity so that they can keep the water circulating, okay? And the water level going down isn't going to kill the electricity. That's good. The International Atomic Energy Agency said they have enough water for several months. So in other words, you don't need to put more water in. The water that's there is enough for several months to keep. Now, I'm assuming what happens after several months, that water just gets too hot. And then the water eventually becomes the temperature of the tubes, right? And, then you have problems. So they've got at least several months before they've got to worry about the water. So nobody's worrying about a nuclear meltdown right now. Okay. That's it for the news I've got. What I'm going to show you guys really quick, because our auctions end tomorrow. And by the way, we're going to keep the show's going to go late tonight because this is a big story. And I knew I had a lot of, and I apologize for going long, but I knew there was a lot of news I wanted to give you guys on this. What I want to do really quick, show you a few of our auction items, because one of the cool things we do in our Discord is we hold auctions, and the auctions benefit Ukraine and they benefit me. Hang on a second. I needed to find ways when I started doing this a year ago to basically finance my work, because I do it full time. Thank you for the galaxy there, Nancy. To finance my own work, because I do this full time. I'm not doing the consulting and things that I normally do, but I'm also not rich. So I had to figure out, how can I keep doing this and pay for it? I decided I would try to see if your guys' gifts and stuff were enough to help out, and they have been. So that's why I always give you the pitch to do the gifts on TikTok and the gifts to do the super chat questions. Oh, sorry. And speaking of which, very cool new animal thing on TikTok. Wow. Dawn, thank you for that. That was very cool. I've not seen that before. That was really cool. Thank you for that. Thus the reason I keep commenting on the gifts, because it's a way of supporting my work. But one of the other ways I do it, and we've also found a way of helping Ukraine, is doing auctions on our Discord community. It's discord.aravosis.com. And what is kind of fun about this is I've been able to find really cool things in Ukraine, buy them, bring them back to the US, and then auction them off to you guys. You guys buy them, And half of the money I use for my own work because literally it's my income. And the other half we've been sending back to Ukraine. And my friend Vlad has been helping us with a number of charities. The charity we've worked with the most is Kharkov Mir, which is basically like a Meals on Wheels charity in Kharkiv, Ukraine. But they do a lot of other stuff too. But we've also been helping the military by buying them camouflage nets, lots of other things. So what I wanted to show you guys is at this point, what we're doing is the auctions go for a week and they always end on Wednesday. I've got all the auctions ending at the same time, or not the same time, different times on Wednesday, so that at least it's easier for people to remember it's Wednesday. You can go to the Discord and check them out. But I wanted to show you a few of the auction items because they're very cool that are ending tomorrow. I'm not going to show you all of them. I'm going to show you several of them. Cool Russian military hat from Ukraine. I will say, given to us by a Ukrainian soldier, thank you, who's going to take the profits from the hat and use it for his unit. So cool Russian military hat, you can see, used. Very cool piece of Ukrainian folk art. Bloody Vladimir, wanted dead or alive. Oh, no, it doesn't say dead or alive. It says wanted, Russian criminal. And the nice little thing on this, the Ukrainian touch, is when you get really close, underneath Russian criminal, you can see a hammer and sickle and the letter Z, both of them are crossed out, meaning we didn't like them when we were Soviets and we don't like them now. Here, I'll show you guys really quick, but I like the little Ukrainian touch at the top, the hammer and sickle and the Z. This is very cool. This one's been very popular. The hat does not have holes in it, but it's dirty, is used. I've got a cool, cool coffee mug. Russian warship Go F Yourself coffee mug. You can see that's the famous Ukrainian stamp showing the soldier giving the middle finger to the Russian ship, the Moskva. That's the ship that the Ukrainian troops said, Russian warship, go F yourself. And then 6 weeks later, the Ukrainians blew it up, which was totally cool. Cool sweatshirt for the charity Kharkov Mir I was telling you about. This is the, Vlad bought them these sweatshirts. You can see it's blue and yellow because the Ukrainian color. So one sleeve's blue, one sleeve's yellow. Super, super, this one says Ukraine on the back. Not all of them do, but super comfortable, 100% cotton sweatshirt. And the final thing we are finally auctioning again because it's springtime is I went and found, with the help of Vlad last year, the combat shirts that Zelensky was wearing. He was wearing these combat shirts. He's got a lot of other ones now, but last year, all the time until winter hit, Zelensky was wearing this combat shirt. And we found the provider and we bought the exact same. I mean, literally they're these shirts. We bought the same shirts. And you may recognize this from last year. Like I said, these are the Zelensky combat shirt. It kind of comes down a little there. It's got the, oops, I'm not showing you this very well. The shoulders, oops, here we go. The shoulders have got the Velcro for putting the military patches on both shoulders. This one, oops, this one and this one. And basically you wear it and you've got your patches that we also sell, right? That we've got there. Very cool shirt. I've got one. That's cute. Yeah, that's true. Me and you, Ukraine does have one. Very true. A number of you do. So we're auctioning those off. And I think that, I mean, we've got other things. I'll skip the other stuff, but that's, well, actually, we've also got a really cool camouflage net. Literally a real Ukrainian military camouflage net that we've been helping finance. So they made us one. They used the same loom. Thank you, Cheryl. The same loom, and they made us a net. It's 9 feet by 2 feet. So it's like 3 meters by 2/3 of a meter. Very cool. You can find all of those on our Discord. We're auctioning them off on the Discord. So discord.aravosis.com. Head on over there. Thank you, Magical, for the gift. And you'll see the public auction area, which is for everybody. And the VIP auction area is only for paid subscribers. And you become a paid subscriber. You can do it via Discord. I'd rather folks, and by the way, if you're a paid subscriber on TikTok, it should let you into the VIP area. Mind you, you've got to create a, Discord account and connect your Discord account to TikTok. You got to do that kind of stuff, right? So any of you who are on Discord with TikTok, make sure you go into your settings on Discord and connect it to TikTok so you get the access. But go to Ko-fi.com, like I was saying, ko-fi.com/Aravosis, and that's where you can set up the connection with Discord. Okay, let me keep going. All right, let's do questions. Sorry, scrolling here to the bottom. Beep, 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 beep. You know what I'll do? I can pull up a TikTok. Let me pull up a TikTok question. I'm making sure I didn't miss anything here. Let me pull up a TikTok question first because I was reading all the paid super chat questions off of YouTube, which I'm very happy. But nonetheless, always nice to thank the TikTokers with a question. Here we go, Q&A. Interesting. Yeah, Morley is saying, are Polish fighters fighting with those Russian soldiers that are working with the Ukrainian army? That's what we heard. That was the report the other day. There were some pictures, allegedly, of Poles who had volunteered to fight with the with these Russian soldiers who were attacking Russia. That supposedly there were Poles there too. Yeah, which is interesting. I mean, I could imagine like the U.S. wouldn't be really happy if I should say Biden wouldn't be really happy if American soldiers were doing it, just because I don't want to confuse things into it being us. But nonetheless, yeah, Russian separate. I keep trying to find a word for them. Yeah, Deb said Russian separatists. That may be a good word, or I say insurrectionists as well. I'm not sure what to actually call them. Was Sophie, does the dam incident increase chances? It's every time I say dam, I think dam, the dam incident. Does the dam incident increase chances of a massive increase of power given to Ukraine, or direct involvement of NATO, UN cause the severity of it? I'm not sure what you mean by massive increases of power. Oh, I see what you mean. I think what she's saying is, will this change what NATO gives Ukraine? Will they give them more? Will they give them better stuff? Right? They should. And what I mean by that is, I've said all along that we should have a policy where when Putin does something outrageous, we give Ukraine more. Either we give them more of the same weapons. We say, now you're getting more HIMARS, right? Now you're getting more Storm Shadow cruise missiles from the Brits or whatever. Or we say, now you're getting better stuff. For example, if the U.S. can determine to its satisfaction that Russia did this, the U.S. should turn around and go, okay, Russia, you know what? Ukraine's been wanting ATACMS long-range missiles to use, or long-range rockets to use with the HIMARS. We're going to give them now because you did this. Every time you do something outrageous, we're going to give them more and to teach you a lesson, right? We absolutely should. We don't. As that I know, I mean, not that I know. If we did it privately, it doesn't send a message. So we should and we don't. Having said that, this still develops sympathy for Ukraine. It still creates outrage among the NATO partners. It creates outrage among our citizens. So Americans and others looking at this think that's awful. Those horrible Russians, right? They killed a zoo. I mean, right? That they're hurting families with children. Mind you, it was the middle of the night, 2:50 in the morning. Everyone's asleep, and all of a sudden the dam goes off, right? I mean, that's scary as hell. So it certainly creates sympathy for Ukraine, which is helpful for Ukraine, and not really helpful for Russia. So I'm just looking here to see more questions from you guys. I mean, I can pull up more of the TikTok, but I'm looking here too. BOBB says, the Poles are one nation that hates the Russian regimes, and rightfully so, very much so. It's no surprise when Poles would engage in something like this. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, the Poles really hate the Russians. I mean, more than ever now, but they really hate the Russians. That is very true. So, right. So I'm not surprised they're doing it, but I would imagine our government would be like, Biden would be kind of like, we don't really want people doing that. Sorry, looking here. BOBB, I mentioned the metric system. What's up with you in the metric system? Because we've got about a third of our audience is from abroad. We've got a lot of Canadians, Australians, and a very large amount of Europeans. So, I mean, in terms of the largest crowd we get, but like 30% of my audience comes from abroad, I've learned by looking at the statistics. So I try to do metrics so the Americans know what's going on. And there you go. And sometimes if I'm using British stories, they've got the metrics anyway. So I leave them in for you guys and then have to put them in feet and miles because, we don't necessarily know. I mean, I had to learn them for science, but, most Americans really would not know a meter a meter is kind of easy for Americans because a meter is a yard. Oh, hey, Harry. A meter is a yard. So that's one thing that would be easy, but, how much a mile is, that kind of stuff is not easy for an American. Even for me, I'd have to say 1,700 meters maybe is a mile, I'm guessing. Magical Photo is asking, oh, thank you, Jetta Mom, for the bleh. For the I'm doing Bugs Bunny for the whatever. I was gonna say what cactus. I didn't know what to call that thing. And please do keep the TikTok gifts coming, guys. I appreciate them. Do you suppose Ukraine will be forced to take a temporary truce to deal with the 60,000 people needing shelter and food? That's interesting. That's interesting. You know what's interesting about you asking that is because you got me thinking another reason why it makes me wonder if this was Russia. We were worrying a week or two ago, we were worrying that Russia was going to possibly blow up the nuclear plant or at least do a fake attack on the nuclear plant. Thank you, Lori. Remember, the concern was that the Russians would say, oh, the plant was attacked by the Ukrainians, and now we're going to release some, they would release some nuclear material in the air or whatever and pretend there was a leak, a nuclear leak from the plant, and we'd have to shut down the entire area for inspections, and there could be no invasion of this area. It didn't happen. The Ukrainians were very worried it was going to happen in a matter of hours, which makes me think they got some intelligence this was coming, right? What happens? A week, at most 2 weeks. Was it a week ago? I think it was a week ago. A week later, instead of the nuclear plant going up that shuts down the counteroffensive in that area, the dam breaks, which shuts down the counteroffensive in that area. Isn't that interesting? I hadn't thought about that other example until you asked your question about it's kind of like the nuclear attack because it had the same impact and it's almost the same area. I mean, the nuclear plant is up here. The flooding is down here, but it's still the idea of the Ukrainians not being able to get this area, which is what the Russians want to stop the Ukrainians from getting this area, especially. They really don't want the Ukrainians getting this, but they really don't want the Ukrainians getting this because this area leads them to Crimea. So the nuclear plant might have helped them stop an attack here. The flooding helps them stop an attack here, at least for now. Now, the nuclear plant, it would have caused more long-term problems because nuclear stuff you can't get rid of unless you cleaned it up, right? Whereas the flooding, in principle, as we said, maybe in 10 days, the flooding will dry enough that the Ukrainians can still invade from there. Who knows? Hi, Alexandra. I know we're praying for you guys too. I did see that, Mike. Yes, Australia has given the most military aid to Ukraine outside of NATO. They had given military aid in transit before they admitted it was practically there. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Thank you, Magical, for the heart. I've got more TikTok questions, but I like to sort of read the yes, BOBB or Bob B, maybe. We should remember Russia's bombing their own apartment building in Russia. I had mentioned that earlier with Putin in 1999. In order to blame Georgia and invade them, Russia can use these kind of tactics and blame Ukraine for it. Yes, very happy to basically make up excuses. Let me pull up another TikTok question. On TikTok, you guys can go to the Q&A link that's in my profile, and you can put questions there. It's just a easier place to put them because there's a better chance of me seeing them. Because on the screen, they kind of fly off the screen, and I see some, but I don't always see them. Let me see here. Beep, beep, beep. Okay, I talked about the Russian positions. Sorry, I'm looking here to see. Oh, that's a good question from Nemo. Is it possible Ukraine will take back all of its territory during this counteroffensive? Possible, but the oh, that was Chechnya. Ah, okay. Thanks, Shadow. Okay. Funny you said that. Sorry. Correction to the earlier comment. It was Chechnya in 1999. It was Georgia in 2008. It's funny. As soon as I was reading Georgia, I didn't want to correct it because I was thinking in my own head, oh, I got it wrong. Because I was thinking that was the Chechens, right, back then. But, Chechen terrorists, right? But I alleged. But I didn't want to correct the person because I was thinking maybe I got it wrong. Yeah, anyway, but it is a good point. It's a good point the person raised. We just got the wrong country inserted there. In other words, blaming another region or country for something that was a lie, basically. What was I saying here? I was pulling up another question. Hang on. Oh, right. Is it possible for Ukraine to get all of its territory back in this counteroffensive? Yes, but I'd say a lot of people don't think it's going to happen in this counteroffensive, but who the hell knows? Um, the thinking is, I mean, who knows, depending who you talk to, but I would say most of the experts have been saying they don't necessarily think Ukraine will get Crimea yet. They think that they'll get some or all of this back. The reason, and I think most of the experts will admit this, is because NATO screwed Ukraine. We didn't give them enough weapons. I mean, we gave them a lot of weapons, but we didn't give them enough to get all of their land back. And that was a conscious decision we made, right? I mean, I've been saying this all along, right? I compare it to having cancer and in America, at least, having cancer could cost you $1 million, $2 million. Now, insurance tends to cover it a little better now than it used to because of Obamacare. But in America, people literally, up until Obamacare, even now, I suspect there's still problems, but up until Obamacare, cancer would break them and then they wouldn't be able to pay for their cancer treatment anymore, right? So imagine you got cancer and it costs $1 million. And somebody says, well, your treatment costs $1 million. I'm going to give you $700,000. And you should be grateful because that's a lot of money. And they're right. You should be grateful. That is a lot of money. But $700,000 is not enough to pay for the cancer treatment. So you're going to die. But if you criticize them, you'll kind of look bad because the person gave you $700,000. I feel like that's kind of the situation with Ukraine and the US and NATO. NATO and the US especially has given Ukraine a lot of money to help the economy and a lot of weapons. Okay. A lot of support. And that is true. Did we give them enough? No. Did we know we weren't giving them enough? Yep. Could we have given them more? Yep. That's what bothers me. We knew from the beginning what was going on. Biden was afraid of giving more. And from my opinion, Biden was afraid of Putin. And guess who else was afraid of Putin? Scholz in Germany and Macron in France. And I think all three leaders were afraid of Putin. Biden probably had to pull some punches because he was afraid, keeping the coalition together. But I think Biden himself made it very clear that it would be World War III if we gave fighter jets to Ukraine and this kind of bullshit. Okay. So from the beginning, we have not given Ukraine everything it needed. We didn't give Ukraine enough early on. And then when we gave it to them, we kept going slow. For example, Patriot missiles. Ukraine now has 2 Patriot missile batteries. That's great. Why only 2? Who the hell knows? Oh, they only get 2, right? HIMARS. Okay, they finally got the HIMARS last year, but first we gave them 1 HIMAR rocket system. Then we gave them 2. And every month we gave them 2 more. And it was this, thank you, Russell, for that. It was this drip, drip, drip of support, right? Tanks. It took until January for NATO to agree to give Ukraine tanks. And even then, America didn't want to give them, we didn't want to give them our tanks. We were like, oh no, you're not getting our tanks. Finally, we came around. They still don't have the American tanks. They may not get the American tanks until the fall or even next year. F-16 fighter jets, same thing. We don't want to do it. Any case, so the reason Ukraine may not get all of its land back in this counteroffensive is because we all held back. Now, again, I don't want to ignore all the help we've given Ukraine because it's been historic. I mean, it really has. NATO has done a lot, but it's like literally we knew what they needed and we were afraid of Putin. So we didn't give them everything they needed. That's it. End of story. Had we done it earlier, they probably could have won. I mean, there would be a much better chance, at least, of them winning this now. But, hopefully that's changed now. Hopefully that's changed. I mean, we know Scholz has been really good. Germany's been great. France has been pretty good. The U.S. has been pretty good lately. I think Biden has certainly changed. Biden's changed a lot, actually, recently. We've seen now the people who support Ukraine or support giving more for Ukraine. Secretary Blinken of our Secretary of State is now ascendant. So now he has had a lot more power, and he basically, his opinion carries more weight now, which is great. Let me look here. I think that's totally, yeah. I think it's, thank you, Johnny, for the heart there. Bill asks, are today's rumors true about a failed invasion? Doubtful. They came from Russia, which means there's a 99% chance they're a lie. Thank you, Marino. The Russians were claiming for yesterday, Ukraine invaded and it failed. The counteroffensive is already a failure. Russia lies. I tell you guys this all the time. And remember, I tell you not as a not as a schoolyard taunt, you're a liar, but as a literal, Russia lies. They lie all the time. We've had some presidents that do that, and Elon Musk is another good example. Elon Musk just lies. He either lies or his word doesn't mean it. I can't tell what's up with Elon. I don't even know what's up with Elon Musk. I think it's a lie. But basically, my point with Elon Musk is what he says, don't attribute any truth or any staying power to anything Elon Musk says. We'll put it that way. Thank you, Scott. And the same thing happens with Russia. There is no reason to ever believe anything Russia says. Let me show you, for example. Russia puts out yesterday a video showing Leopard 2, German Leopard 2 tanks given to Ukraine that Russia has already blown up. And we've got video showing them blowing up. Somebody, it wasn't me, somebody last night pulls up the video of these Ukrainian, I'm trying to think which one's which. This is the one. This is the video showing the Leopard 2 tank getting blown up by the Russians. Okay. It's not the video. I took a picture of the guy online took a picture of the video. So you see a tank there and then like a thing on its side. I'm now going to show you next a picture from a documentary about the Leopard 2 tank. Okay. And this documentary from the Leopard 2 is from years ago. Look familiar? Okay. Let's go back and forth. Tank inside, tank, even the dark stuff next to the tank. Look at the dark stuff next to the tank here and here. Look familiar? Never, ever, ever, ever trust. But I'm serious. The Russians are liars. The Russian government, they lie. And don't let anybody tell you, oh, governments lie. They are congenital liars in terms of how they address public policy. Every single thing they say is a lie. So no. Russia did, the very fact that Russia said yesterday that they already beat the Ukrainians in the counteroffensive means the Ukrainians did something that was really good yesterday because the Russians had to lie about it. And by the way, blowing up the dam, if the Russians blew up the dam, I'm trying to think who it was that said it today. I think it was General Stavridis. I'm trying to remember who said it today, but somebody said today, and they said, you don't do something like blowing up a dam unless you're like this, unless you're losing. You know what I mean? That basically Russia wouldn't do this unless they were desperate. So yeah, they're lying. Yep. Well, exactly. Metallium is saying there's a video released by the Russian Ministry of Defense about hitting a Leopard 2 and it shows a tractor. Right. No, I mean, so anyway, but I thought I would mention it because the story's out there and the Russians have been saying it. And I think it's important for you to know that because, no, just don't believe them. I mean, literally, by the way, oh, thank you, Susan. Always sweet of you. I just saw that. I just appreciate that. I do like my chocolates. You know that. I'm trying to actually, I lost a little weight visiting mom for a month, so I don't want to eat too many chocolates, but I'll have some. What was the other lie they did recently that we caught them on? Oh yeah. Remember they said the chief of the Ukrainian military, Zaluzhny, General Zaluzhny is dead. Have you seen him? Have you seen him? No one's seen him. We blew him up. And for a week they were saying we blew him up. And finally, Zaluzhny did a video and he's introduced by somebody going, so there's been a lot of propaganda about General Zaluzhny being blown up. And you see the camera turn and Zaluzhny's sitting at the table and he goes like this. It was really funny. And then he talked too. They just lie. They just lie. So yeah, no, never, ever, ever. But I mean, my point here too is, this is why also with the counter with this thing blowing up today, I like to have facts. I can tell you that I'm pretty convinced that Russia did this. I think it's unlikely that it was an accident, so to speak, or meaning structural damage. I think it's unlikely I think it's very unlikely the Ukrainians did it, but I can't swear to you Russia did it. But I can tell you everything points to Russia having done this. The other thing I was thinking, by the way, we're going to end pretty soon, I think, because it's already quarter after. You know me, I start getting hungry and then I've got to end the show. The other thing that's interesting to me is, could this have been something that Russia did too soon? Like they basically prepared the dam, they caused structural damage, they even set up maybe the bombs and stuff, and it went off too soon? I wonder about that. Because if you're Russia, the dam blowing up would have been a lot more effective if Had Ukraine attacked, had Ukraine, crossed the river, and Ukraine's now on the river, across the river right here, landing on the shore, and then the dam goes off, the Ukrainian troops get washed away with a lot of their weapons and everything else by the dam going off. That's what you want to have happen. And the Russian troops, per se, are already backing up. That's what you want to have happen. You don't really want the dam to go off when Putin maybe doesn't care, but you'd rather do it when a lot of Ukrainian troops are in that area. And that's not what happened. It really just made me wonder if the Russians did try to blow it up, but they screwed up and their bomb went off too soon. Okay? Just an idea. What else, guys? We'll maybe do one or two more, like I said, and then I'll do my synopsis and then call it quits here. Oops. Beep, 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 beep. Sorry, I'm looking here. Anything else? I think they did. I think someone screwed up the bomb. Somebody did something, but it's just an idea. But so we might as well mention. So there's a Washington Post story today worth mentioning. Actually, I'll make this the last thing we talk about. Interesting Washington Post story today. Thank you, Scott, for that. Might as well because the story is out there. About that intelligence last year or whatever that. I know what it was. This is one of those memos that idiot who's going to jail for life that was releasing all the classified information. And he was releasing all of it to the putting on the Discord, and not my Discord, but other Discords. And one of the memos he released said that U.S. intelligence or foreign intelligence, some intelligence found out that the Ukrainians were either planning to or had a plan to, thank you, Tom, blow up the, I'm spacing out here, guys. This is what happens when I get hungry. Help me. I'm spacing out. What was it? I'm totally having a meltdown here. It wasn't the dam. I'm totally forgetting what the Washington Post story was. What was it, guys? Help. Nord Stream. Thank you. Oh my God, Nord Stream. Thank you. Yeah. That the Ukrainians actually, like last June or so, thank you, Tom, for the hat, had a plan to blow up the Nord Stream pipeline. It looks like the U.S. talked to them and talked them out of it, right? The interesting thing is that there were some details of their plan, and it looks similar to what happened to the Nord Stream pipeline months later. Now, that's what the story is. We don't know that it's the Ukrainians who did it. It's possible, by the way, that's possible evidence that the Ukrainians could have done it. It's also possibly evidence that the Ukrainians didn't do it. Why? Because the Americans found out and the Americans told them don't do it, right? It's going to be a problem if you do this. If the Americans say don't do it, it's going to be a problem. And Ukraine says, okay, it's canceled. Why would Ukraine turn around just a couple months later and do it anyway? Right? Little weird. I'm still agnostic on this. It could be Ukraine. It actually could be that did the pipeline. But it just seems a little weird to me that if they were going to do it anyway, then why not tell the Americans go to hell? Why tell the Americans okay and then actually not do it for a few months anyway? It just seems weird, right? So that story can go both ways. But honestly, it might have been Ukraine. I don't think in a million years it's the U.S. No. Hi, Sash. I know I'm still doing a little work. We're going late tonight. My dog is literally sitting. Oh my God, she's sitting in my. I'm going to see if I can get a picture of this. She's sitting in my doorway. The poor pathetic. Okay, here we go. It's blurry. Oh, it's blurry, but you can see she's sitting in my doorway to my bedroom and just making this pathetic little noise, looking at me. I'm hearing. She wants my attention. Exactly. Thank you, for that. It's very cute, but I was like, what the hell is she doing? It's like it's 20 after, and she's like, you're usually done by now. So we don't know. We don't know who did the pipeline. We don't. But I was just bringing up the story to say, it could be the Ukrainians, it might not be. I don't really care if the Ukrainians did it, to be honest. My only concern with the pipeline was the political aspect. Thank you, Marino, for that. My concern with the pipeline would be, I wouldn't want the Ukrainians to do something that would get them into trouble with the Americans, would get them into trouble with the Germans, might get them into trouble with the rest of the Europeans when they rely on them for so much assistance. That's my concern. Otherwise, the pipeline shouldn't have existed to start with, as far as I'm concerned. Those things have been a danger from the first pipeline decades ago. Bad news, but who knows? All right, guys, let me do a quick summary of the news, and then I'm going to go give my dog some love and make some dinner. Thank you, Rick, for the hat. So it's day 467 of Putin's 3-day special military operation. Big story today is talking about the dam that burst, the Kakhovka Dam. New York Times had a really interesting story saying that their experts say it was a deliberate explosion inside the dam that did it, that is the most likely thing that happened. And mind you, a deliberate explosion on the Russian-controlled side of the dam inside. So there's very unlikely the Ukrainians could have gotten in there, okay? Talked about sort of who it helped and who it hurt. In general, it helps the Russians. The concern here is that with this land being flooded, the Ukrainians are going to have to wait to invade. This is a key area the Ukrainians are going to want to take over, especially because it puts all mapped out. I have to show the map anyway. It puts Crimea in danger because the Ukrainians need to take this area before they take Crimea. This now getting flooded out means Ukraine has to wait at least several weeks, if not longer, before they invade that area in order to take the land. So it certainly benefits the Russians. It's hard to find a benefit for Ukraine in flooding out this region. Yeah, it floods out some Russian troops, but it also stops Ukraine from invading and taking Crimea, which is what they want to do. So not really clear. Let me find here. Beep, 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 beep. NBC is reporting that U.S. intelligence has information that is leaning towards Russia as the culprit. Michael Clark, military expert on Sky News, says Ukraine has nothing to gain and Russia has something to gain from bombing the dam. Sky News reports that the Russian government published a decree banning authorities from investigating accidents at dams in this area just a week before the dam blew up. Pull here. Beep, 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 beep. Oh, I didn't mention it's a war crime, by the way. Blowing up a dam is a war crime. It's specifically mentioned under the Geneva Conventions because it's regarded as an indiscriminate weapon of mass destruction. Even after the water dissipates, as I said, the Ukrainians are still going to have to see how wet the ground is in terms of how it affects their counteroffensive, whether they're going to have to hold off or not. And the nuclear plant, we finally concluded talking about the nuclear plant. I quoted a Financial Times article that's very interesting if you can get access, talking about how some nuclear experts saying it is very unlikely that this flooding is going to cause any problems, any nuclear accident at the plant, which is good news. All right, guys, that is it for tonight. I am going to go. Oh, I saw Blue Geese say, "Is the dog staring?" I have to show you this. Again, a little hard to see because it's not focusing perfectly, but you can see now. She laid down. She's laid down with her eyes half closed, waiting for me. Is that too cute? It just cracks me up. She's still waiting, watching, but she figured, okay, I'll lay down at least. No, she's adorable. She really is too cute. Anyway, guys, thanks for coming. I know we did have a lot of trolls tonight. I was watching a lot of them too. Fun. Always love the trolls. Whack a troll. But thank you, mods, for getting after the trolls. Thank you all for the gifts and the super chat questions and the super stickers and everything else. You're lovely people. Thank you for that. And yeah, thank you, Scott, for the hat. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Remember, every Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. I've not yawned yet, but that's because I had a little tea before the show, which is also why I'm talking faster. But at least it perked me up a little bit. And do go check out Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/Aravosis. You guys have it at the bottom of your screen over here. You guys can find the link in my profile on TikTok. Just click it. First thing that comes up is Ko-fi, and it is a way to contribute to my work. You can sign up with a one-time donation. Thank you, Nancy. Or a monthly donation, which would be a lovely thing to do. I would appreciate if you guys would consider doing it because it's a nice way to support my work and keeps the money coming because I do this full time. So thank you, guys. You can check out Ko-fi.com. Again, link is in my bio. Link's at the bottom. Otherwise, go check out my Discord. The auction ends. I will have new auction items after tomorrow, but a lot of cool auction items end tomorrow. I'm getting cooler and cooler stuff actually for the auction. It's been a lot. I enjoy this. It's fun. And it's been helping my work, but it's been and helping Ukraine, but it's also a lot of fun. So, all right, guys, I will see you all later. We'll see you all tomorrow. Okay. Thank you. Ooh, 6 pounds of caramel toffee. I'd be willing to try. That's my mom's favorite, is the caramel toffee. I do like toffee, though. Sometimes the butter can be a little rich for me, but I do like it. All right, guys. I will see you all. See you guys.